It's time for a shift. This is the shift. Big change, big things in the phase. Yeah. Big change, big things in the phase. Yeah.
Sister Lucrecia, what do you do?
I am an attorney. I practice in business and real estate law.
Wow.
Yes.
How many people do you find? How many black females do you find in your field?
So I'm very intentional about being around other black attorneys, period, but especially other black women.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes that allows you to forget that there's so few of you until you go out to do your work.
The field work, and then you realize that.
Yeah, it's not enough.
Wow.
We're less than 4% of the profession.
Wow.
Yeah.
Why did you choose that profession in the first place?
So, remember how I mentioned all of my reading? Right. So, part of that was that I saw when there were extreme injustices or extreme things that people were doing wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, there's been missteps in the law, but ultimately it was corrected because someone with a law degree said, this can't happen. And I wanted to be a part of that. I wanted to be the person that was, this can't happen. So
how has it been? How's the journey been?
I love being a lawyer. It is very tiring regardless of your race or sex. So but I do love being one. I worked for other people in a small firm setting, and that was okay, but I learned a lot. I worked in what they call big law, which is hundreds of attorneys worldwide working in a firm in kind of like a corporate setting. And that's not great at all. Because that is very evident that it's only 4% when you work in big law. It is very evident in every way.
Wow.
So and then after that, I was trying to decide what was next for me. And I kind of did like I did when I left college in Georgia and said, I don't want to do this anymore. Let's see how it works if I just do this for myself. So
you have your own firm now?
I do.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You've done great.
Thanks.
Wow. Black girl magic. Wow. I love that. What are some of the challenges you found as being a black person in this practice? What are some of the challenges, that you've actually experienced?
So I think one of the things about being in anything and being black is that we have the same issues that anyone else has in the profession. Then we have additional issues on top
I'm talking
of
about the
being
additional,
black. Yes.
Right.
So some of the additional ones are sometimes clients may not respect what it is you're doing for them.
Just because you're black.
Yeah. Or
because you're female.
Both, actually.
So being black is one thing on its own.
Yes.
And being female is another.
Yes.
Wow.
So you may have, and the longer you do it, the quicker you can pick up on things. If I am meeting with a potential client or a client and they mention anything about my appearance, I already know this is going to be a problem. Because we hear about your money and you worried about, okay, I know I'm cute, thank you. Now about this
let's get serious.
$100,000 contract.
Right,
Did you want to talk about that? So
right.
Those are, and you can pick up on that easier. There are some people that will call a white counterpart and pay whatever they say and not question it. They'll call me and they want to debate and haggle with the price, and I'm like, no.
They say that black people don't actually appreciate black people when it comes to doing business. Do you think it's true?
I think it's true in a sense, meaning when people say someone doesn't support black business, I'm like, well, then who's buying it? So people definitely support black people definitely support black businesses.
Right.
But then there's also, like in anything, there's a sect or can be sects of people that do not it's because they don't value themselves. If I look in the mirror and don't value what I see because of my skin color or my sex, then when I interact with someone that has the exact same as me, I won't respect or value them either. So it still all goes back to the way society forces you sometimes, or tries to force you to view yourself. So yeah, so it can definitely be
like
a problem.
you were saying that a white colleague of yours can get a contract, just mention any figure and they down for it, but then you say it and then they will be like, it's too much, or we're not gonna pay that. Or
Yes,
have you had that experience from black people especially?
I definitely have had that experience from black people, and I just don't engage in it. Basically, I don't, because we don't negotiate our rates there. So I'm like, this is the rate. You can
Right.
You can pay it or not. You can go back to the other person you called before and let them do it. And what I have had, obviously, I'm not. There are other great attorneys out there, but what I have had in the past is people go to that other counterpart. They don't care about your business the way I know how it's important to you, how this is your legacy, or this is putting your food on the table today. You're just another retainer to them, and they don't see it the same way, so they're not going to care for your case or your matter the same way I will necessarily. And so something may get overlooked or messed up, and then you have to come back to one of us to repair it, but you've already given them their max that they asked for on their retainer. And so now you're asking me for a break, and the answer still is no, because you could have came over here to start with.
So have you gotten to a point in time in your career that you were like, you know what, I'm tired of this, I'm not gonna do this no more?
Oh yes.
What brought you to that? Tell us one story. What brought you to that?
There has been a few moments like that.
What actually happened? Tell us about it.
So because of ethics, when it happens, I may not be able to remove myself from it at the time. I may have to finish the matter. So it then turns into I'll never help them again. I've had someone go against everything I told them to do.
Just go the opposite direction.
Yes, it of course turned out poorly because
they didn't listen.
So they then blamed me.
They blamed you for them not listening to you.
Yes. They demanded that I give them the money back they paid me that I had earned. I said no, of course. They then hired a white attorney to send me a demand letter to give it back to them. They have a saying at home that an attorney represents himself as a fool for a client. So I could have responded, but I just didn't. I hired somebody else, a black attorney, to respond for me, to say no again. And at that point, I was just like, I went over beyond, and I was just like, you just don't understand, like. And of course, they paid this other attorney who to demand the money back from me. He didn't get it because why would I give you back money I earned? And then,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm just trying to feel it. Being black alone is one problem. Being a female is another.
Yes.
It gets depressing, huh?
It does. It can have its moments. It's not just the clients, it's the running of a business too. So having staff also is.
Wow. So what inspires you really?
I still enjoy being a lawyer. And at this point, it would have to be something major for me to not work for myself. Like for me to go be employed by someone else. I don't know the amount of money they could offer me for me not to do it. For me to be willing to go be employed by someone else at this point. There's still a level of peace that I get from being able to say no to things. Even being able to split my time between here and home, I can't do that really if I work for someone else. I mean, so it's things like that. I get to employ other black people.
Right.
I'm the sole decider on whether or not. Right. So yeah.
So setting up on your own, I want you to inspire people, right? Setting up on your own. How challenging was it? Did you just do it one time and it worked? or?
So, I am not one of those people who tell people they have to go head first into something, because I know that there's a level of stress that can come from things if you are not financially secure. So I actually, instead of taking another job, they had a case that they wanted my help on. I told them I would do what they call contract. So I worked for them and kept getting checks for that while I build my practice. And at some point, while doing this, it was over the course of about 8 months. My practice was too busy for me to even still continue to. So I think you have to know that. I know there's this big push on social media now that tells people about setting their boundaries and not doing things and not being overbooked and all of that. Boundaries are most certainly important. Your rest is most certainly important. But you cannot possibly believe that you will accomplish anything without having to sacrifice something else, even if it's just for a short period of time. So there are sacrifices that I had to make in those 8 months, or in that, to get my firm where I wanted it to be. And so that is what I tell people, to go in knowing that there will be a sacrifice and to be okay with it. So that's pretty much it.
What are some of the sacrifices you had to make?
One of them was most certainly sleep, because I wanted to be financially stable. So I still had this contract that I was working, which I was supposed to work 40 hours a week doing. But then I'm still I'm bringing in the cases and doing the work on the cases. And at that time, I had no staff. So it was just me doing everything. I had to sacrifice a social life. Like, there's not a lot of time for brunch or happy hour when you're working that much. I have like a ridiculous shoe habit. So
you love shoes.
Yes. So I knew if I was going to be getting my firm to where I wanted it to be, and making sure that I had the finances to get it there, that sacrifice a portion of that budget. You may even have to, if you want a relationship, that being the best that's a myth. Somebody's gonna fail. Either he or she is not gonna get your attention, or your work is not gonna get your attention if you're trying to reach a goal.
What is something that you've noticed, I mean, being in your career, that black people, especially when it comes to real estate or housing, that black people do not take advantage of? Probably because they don't know, or they are ignorant. Just one thing. With
all of the gentrification that we have, one of the ways that that's able to happen is taxes. People not paying their property taxes. So this house has been paid. Your grandmother paid off this house a long time ago. And now you, as her children or grandchildren, can't even come together to pay the taxes while she's in retirement. And they're increasing. So someone can come in and buy this house for fractions on the tax debt and take away your family's wealth just like that. And stop selling these houses. Stop selling y'all houses. When grandmama pass on and leaves the house,
hit on it.
Stop selling them. I don't care whatever amount of money they offered you. If they offered you that much, that should tell you just how much it's worth. Stop selling them. Stop selling them. Just stop. Figure it out. Make sure the deed has the proper names on it so it doesn't turn into heirs property. Have your wills in place and stuff like that. Because that could be another way with it turning into heirs property. But stop selling these houses. Just stop. Yeah.
I'm gonna let you put your information out so people can actually reach out to you. Because some people will sell it because they don't have an idea even how to go about it, and probably because they think they can't maybe afford, attorneys just to be on their case for them. Maybe you can do something about it with them, where it will be mutually beneficial.
Yeah.
or something like that. So I mean, getting to the end of it, I'll let you put your information out so that people can also, because we gotta own.
Yes.
We have to own the properties,
Yes.
land. We need more education on these things,
We do.
and unfortunately for us, they don't teach us in our school system how to, use money and how to save and how to acquire property and all that. Now, you being in a position where I think it's about time that people, I'll let you put your information out so people can reach out to you and, you can explain some of these things to them and also, get in business with them as well. But what are some of the things that you think limits us as a people? Let's talk about the American setting. Black people, what are some of the things that are in the Constitution or the system that actually has been the biggest limitation for us as a people?
So there are a few things.
Okay. Name them. One.
One is the 13th Amendment.
Okay. Two.
Two is traffic stops.
Okay. Three.
The way business is handled.
Can you add another one? Or let's talk about this three.
Let's
deal with this three as we go on. I mean, if it comes up, we just put it in. Okay. So you said the 14th or the 16th Amendment?
13th.
13th. Okay. What about it?
So it was a few years ago, Ava DuVernay put out this documentary on the 13th Amendment. And I think that provided more knowledge to some people that wasn't aware. And the amount of people that found it to be so, I guess, informative and so helpful let me know just how many people never knew this. So at the end of slavery, basically these crops and everything they still need the fields work. The people that they have not freed, my ancestors, they still don't want to pay them. So the 13th Amendment essentially says that slavery is not allowed unless you're incarcerated, basically. So they started doing these roundups where they just would arrest black people for little or nothing or something made up. Like you steal a loaf of bread, you could get 20 years or something, and you're working. And you were talking about the last time you were talking about somebody getting arrested for buying something that's stolen. Yes. So part of basically our judicial system as a whole is that it works the way that it's basically intended. Our criminal justice system, and the way it's intended is not for the best of black Americans. So on paper it says one thing where you think we should be equal and treated fairly, but in practice it just doesn't. It's
different.
Yeah. So one of the things is that there are far too many laws. It's too expansive for anyone to know all of them. So you could break a law and have no idea what you're doing is breaking the law. One way that I see this happening a lot is, for instance, let's say someone went to go, we call him the hookup guy. He went to go steal laundry detergent or something from the supermarket. You're out, you need laundry detergent. He's selling it for $10 less than the store. You're going to buy it. You're on a limited budget too. Right. You're now in receipt of stolen goods. You committed a crime. So you can also be arrested with
this other guy.
Yeah. So that's something that people are often caught up on. And because money is so scarce in our community, looking for savings or looking for a quick buck, someone tells you, hey, you just go in the bank and cash this check for me, and you got an account here? Yeah, I got an account. Go cash this check for me. I'll give you $100 out of it. All right, I can go cash it.
Go do it. Just for $100.
That check is fraudulent. So they coming back to you to be, and you sitting there like, but the guy gave it to me. I didn't write this check. I didn't. So yeah.
And one thing that's going on is we have people here that are running huge sums of money through people's accounts in the U.S. and giving them cuts.
Yes. So that's all of the anti-money laundering stuff, and all of those laws is a whole completely set of different laws that's federal and can lead to felonies. So felony conviction. So it's just all of this different stuff, and then not to mention that there are still scammers out there doing different things where someone think it's going to make them quick money or something, and it ends up costing them money. And so you have to be careful of those. So that may not get you in jail, but it's still, now this is just costing you your rent for the month or something like that.
So basically, if you're incarcerated, that means you've signed up for slavery. Back into it.
You didn't sign up for it. They forced you into it. But yeah, so basically, there are certain companies in the U.S. that contract with the prison system to answer their customer service phone calls. So you're calling about some item you have or shipping something, you're speaking to an inmate. But then when that same inmate is released, they won't hire them because they have a conviction. Like, you literally had them doing the job.
And how beneficial is that to the company?
It's extremely beneficial. They are more than likely getting a tax break, and they are also paying. So I believe the federal minimum wage is like $7.50 in the U.S. So a state can make their minimum wage higher than that, but they can't go any lower than that amount. And so that means that if that company placed that business anywhere in the U.S., at minimum, that's how much they would have to pay each employee per an hour. So, but if they get inmates to do it, those inmates are making like 30 cents an hour, and then the system is pocketing the rest of the money. Wow. So yeah.
Let's go to the next point. That's did you say the justice system or the judicial system?
It's the same. So
it's the same thing. The traffic.
The traffic. So the traffic is different. So one way how so many people are harassed, and you see it in our news.
Yeah, it's all over.
It's from traffic stops. Because the traffic for any municipality, city, county, state is huge. Right. So all a police officer has to do is follow you for a couple of blocks, and you will break a traffic law or do something where someone they can pull you
deliberately follow you.
Yes. And they will, because they just lie too and say you broke one, and you seem like, I saw him swerving, and so that's cause to pull you over. When they do it, then they get to your car and they use some other reason to try to search. Or if you try to assert your rights or do anything, they're behaving aggressively and doing, up to just sometimes you can be lucky if they just make you late to where you're going, versus
delay your time.
Versus being detained, shot, or anything. Them finding a reason to arrest you and hold you, because once you're arrested, now if you are arrested, once you're arrested, it doesn't matter what you say once you get there. Now a judicial officer has to release you, a judge or a magistrate. Right. You need bail. Right. Even if there's no bail, they have to say that. So it's not like, and so that a lot of people, I used to do what they call initial appearance. I represented people when they were first arrested, and that first hearing that decides whether you get out. Those traffic stops have cost people their livelihoods, because if you're working for certain jobs or certain companies, you didn't call in to tell them you wouldn't be there and all of that. You're arrested, so you're fired. So now you're out of work, or they giving you a monetary bail they're saying $500, but that's how you're going to feed yourself for the month or your family. And so it's all of those type things that ends up causing far more harm and placing people who never needed to be into the system into it. Because if I lost my job, I've never really actually committed a real crime, nothing dangerous or something like that. But now I've lost my job. And I still have a kid, or I still just even have myself, and I can't get another job or something like this. I may be feel like I'm forced to commit a crime.
Right.
To whether that's selling drugs or is stealing or doing something else to provide my necessities. And so instead of doing what the system is meant to do, these aggressive cops and these cops with these egos and everything else has now created problems in the system. Whereas this person, if you would just let them go on about their business, they would be at work now, continuing to work, feeding themselves, and they wouldn't have now a record that they got to try to get expunged, like even if it's dismissed and things like that. So traffic stops is a major issue in our system, and it's...
What is the third one?
So the third one was, I believe that we as businesses in the way they're set up,
right.
You have to be able to, working for someone else is never going to get you wealth.
Right.
And I'm not saying having a job is wrong under any circumstances, but you have to diversify.
Okay.
And have some other type of business or investment or something on the side. So the way that it's set up, most people in our community don't know how it's set up and how to go about doing that. So you decide, okay, I'm going to incorporate a business. And let's say if you do that part on your own, but then you don't have an operating agreement, or you enter into contracts with a vendor, but you just signed it. You don't know what you're signing. You're taking their word for it. If you have a business, you have to do annual filings or biannual filings, depending on where you're at. If you don't do that, then you're not in good standing, and this business you think you have is now defunct. So these are all of the things that I feel like was not given to us as knowledge. Also, you don't have to necessarily use your own money to start a business or to grow a business. You have to know how to set up the business properly so that you can get the credit necessary to grow it and to build that wealth. Because when you look at these major corporations, they aren't using their own money to grow. Like when they build a new NFL stadiums, these billionaires aren't using their money.
Right.
They're getting loans and paying them back, getting tax breaks and grants and all of this. And so there are things like that too for smaller businesses, but you have to know them and be aware. And you have to get familiar with the SBA and the money that they provide.
Do you think there are things that actually make black businesses not thrive? Like as per what the Constitution says or how the system is set up out there, are there anything that, any clauses, or is there anything at all that actually makes, per your observation, is there anything that makes them not thrive?
Yeah, there definitely is. One of those things is basically it's just the history of oppression. So many of our white counterparts, this is not the first business in their family that they're starting. Either their father, their mother, or their uncle, or their grandpa have
did something, right?
So they can just ask them. There's someone else, or they just picking up and doing what they already started and growing it. We don't have that. The problem with being systematically oppressed is that it takes decades, if not a century, to fix what they have been doing, and it has to be progressively getting better. And it can't be, all right, we gave them the civil rights movement, there was a Civil Rights Act, and then we proceeded to segregate schools again, like through another legal means.
Right.
It has to be progressively getting better with no more obstacles or steps in order for people to get to where the white people, where the white counterparts have been able to get. So there is basically a knowledge thing that stops us from, like, there are people who can make great food or something like that. There are rules and regulations set up for you to be able to do that.
Right.
And if you don't do it properly, one fine can shut you down.
Right.
So it's things like that. So that's how the system.
Do you think that they know and they ignore, or they have no idea?
I think it's a combination. So I think sometimes we don't always understand the importance of paying for services. Whether that's an accountant, a lawyer, a professional photographer, like we don't always understand the need of that. And so you may know there's something that you can do better, but you don't realize that not doing it is going to shut you down completely once you get hit with a fine, or something else happens, or someone's able to steal your brand because you didn't properly protect it. So, yeah.
Wow. It's a lot that we have to learn. What are some of the things you think that we should start doing as a people to actually help us build up, businesses and own properties? And what are some of the things that you think, some of the practices that we should start actually looking at?
I think that we have to get better at sharing information. Freely sharing information. I don't mind telling anyone how I started my law firm that wants to do it. I am not in. We shouldn't be in direct competition with each other all the time, like saying, "Oh, if I did it, she's gonna have to figure out how to do it on her own." You know how much time I could have saved if it was somebody I could have trusted to tell me.
Right.
So I want to do. That's the whole point. If I can help someone else, then we are better. We are further along than what we want to be. Like, how you did something is not a secret, or it shouldn't be. Share the wealth of information.
Share information.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to get a little personal here. I'm not trying to be nosy, but it's a lot of people that are watching, and they will want to know certain things, as a career woman. I've heard and I've read about things. I've heard people say, express how life has been for them, trying to achieve greater heights in their life. How has relationships been for you?
What's that saying that people have on social media? Focus on yourself. So that is how relationships have been. I will be honest in that I was not intentional about relationships until a little later in my life. I was very much focused on my career. On your career,
right. And have you had good people come here? Has it been challenging trying to, get on with somebody, talk to somebody, or somebody talking to you?
Getting the attention of someone is never challenging, but it's the whether or not you all mesh with each other, whether or not you have the same type of goals in mind, whether or not they have vices or cons that you want to put up with, and vice versa. So you can like the way someone look, even not mind having a couple of conversations with them, but that doesn't mean you can build a life.
Yeah. Accomplished women like yourself, sometimes I've heard, I've never really seen.
You heard.
Yeah, I heard. I heard from people's conversation, that it's hard to, because sometimes most men are even kind of scared to approach you, or they kind of feel less of a man because you are, have the upper hand somehow. How has it been for you?
I have ran into some of that. I won't say it's the bulk of what I deal with, but it normally shows itself not even in the way that people are used to. Men don't have a problem approaching me. I always say men never mind shooting above their range. So I've never
You never have that challenge, huh?
Yeah, so they will come, but that doesn't mean that once you're dating them or in a relationship, they can't ultimately deal with what it means to date someone that has a professional focus or professional, in that their ego, the male ego, is something nothing rivals. So that the male ego can always deal with, no matter, it doesn't matter how much a woman may try to make a man feel secure, and if they don't believe it, there's nothing you will ever be able to say or to do to force that upon them, has been my experience anyway. And
Have you had an experience where a man felt, less of a person because of your achievement?
Yes.
I mean, even though they did not really talk about that, maybe their actions actually made you know?
Yes.
A lot of times.
Yes. I won't say a lot, but often enough that you notice it. And it's not even that. If you compare, sometimes, if you, let's say, for instance, you want to do the on paper thing, if you compared us together on paper, we could be equal or he could be more than, but it's sometimes I have had the experience where men want to be, they need me to be smaller, to be lesser.
Why do you think they do that?
I have no idea what goes on with the male ego.
Smaller asking. I mean, do they think you're not submissive enough, or?
Oh yeah, I'm definitely not submissive. And it's not just I've never had a man think that I wasn't submissive enough because they knew I wouldn't be going. I've never hidden that I don't want to submit to you, and I don't need you to submit to me. So I've never had that issue necessarily, like in a longer dating situation or relationship. But I have had, for instance, where they don't like necessarily a professional focus sometimes, and what that can bring with it. Like I always say the independence sometimes of career-minded women is that if they are with you, they want you. They don't need you, and I'll never say I don't need you. But they know ultimately she doesn't need you. And in my mind, I always thought it has to be better for somebody to want you, to want to be there, but it's not. So
do you actually consider a certain class when choosing a partner?
No.
You don't?
No.
Okay. Have you had encounters where people felt that because of your class they cannot approach you or something?
No. Well, probably, but they weren't. It wasn't anyone that I was necessarily dating that. But no, I mean, I am a first generation college graduate, so it's just not in me to consider that, to look down. It's more of, because you can have a college degree and do nothing. You can not have one and be amazing in doing what you need to do to sustain yourself, to grow in whichever manner you are seeing fit. So, no, that's never been really something I considered.
Are you married?
I am not. I am single.
You're single?
I am single.
Wow. Brothers, if you're watching this show, it's time to actually take the initiative of taking the bold steps and approaching her. She don't, look at the class really. But I mean, you got to be sane though, right? Is there a certain type of person you like? A certain type of man you look out for? Do you have any qualities that you actually look out for?
You need to be goal oriented. Like you cannot be okay with whatever your station is in life. Even if it's good, because that's not how
that's not the end of it.
Yeah,
you got to keep pushing.
Yeah, and I know from experience that dating someone that is not goal oriented is not for me, because I'm going to get annoyed, and you're going to be annoyed with me. So yeah,
there's this thing that's going on. There's this pattern that's going on. I've noticed that there is a lot of women from especially America looking to Africa to find better house. What do you think is causing that? I mean, there are men in America that are equally, I mean, them brothers be fine out there too. So what's causing it?
You know, I still split my time between both countries.
I know.
You're trying to cause me issues.
I mean, they're not going to get you for this. Just say it. I mean, what's causing that? Because I know it's one part that most of the black men are actually incarcerated. You know, a bigger percentage of them. But then there are still black men. I mean, some are, you know, doing other things. You know, when I say other things, you know what I mean by other things. But yeah, what do you think is actually causing that? Because there are still men in America.
So there is.
No, don't just put it out. I mean, you're not in Ghana because you want to find a man. That's not the reason why you're here. I mean, you're just here because you want to be here. I understand that. But then, I mean, you being a woman from there, you've heard in conversations, maybe you have a reason why there's a shift in that aspect as well.
It's a level of maturity that is sometimes missing there. There's also, if you want to be married or have a family, typically, in my experience, African men are there faster, meaning, and this is not like me thinking people want like that obviously happens, marriage of people. That's not what I'm saying. Like, even if you meet an African man in the States or whatever, he's there faster. Like, he's not expecting to date for 5 years or you to be in a committed relationship with him for 5 years. That's right. Yeah, y'all don't really do that. Whereas Black American men can be like, well, I'm still getting ready. I'm still getting to know her. Listen, if I don't know you in a year, I'll never know you. Right. This is so it's things like that. There's a level of maturity there that, and again, nothing is across the board for everyone, but there is also, like, I know that there is a stereotype that African men can be very, they want the submissive spouse or and some of y'all can be. Right.
Because I was going to ask you a question, because I've heard a sister talk about African men, not African men, but the Ghanaian men being passive. One, and they said they lack, they can't communicate well.
Oh, y'all communicate terribly. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. Yeah. But then you are putting it in a different perspective now, that is actually better than what you normally find in the States. And I want to know how that combines and still make it perfect. Because if they are passive and they don't communicate well, and I'm trying to find the particular word the sister uses, like they love you, but they don't know how to love you.
Yes. I think so. It's more of, it depends on, you've heard of the love languages. Depends on how you receive love. Like, what is your love language? So I think that some women would fare better or have better in dating Ghanaian men than they may Black American men because of their particular love language. If you require words of affirmation as your love language, like someone to say certain things to you, and you're not going to get that from a Ghanaian man, so it'll be a horrible relationship for you. You just,
wow.
Yeah, y'all don't know.
Brothers, you have to learn. But why don't you teach the brothers how to go about these things?
So someone has to want to. So they have to want to be receptive of knowing what it is you are seeking. Whether that's a Ghanaian man or a Black American man, if they are unwilling to do what you are asking, then that's a lost cause anyway. Because how can you build something with someone who you tell them, hey, I prefer this instead of that, or it would be great if you could do it, and they just ignore you?
Wow.
It's not possible. So yeah.
Wow, brothers, we have a lot to learn, and I hope we get it. But if we don't, it's also good anyway. So how you living here? What do you do now? Like here, being here?
Yeah. So,
and what are you looking to doing here?
So I split my time between here and home.
Hold on. Here and home. Where is home?
Well, both are kind of my home now, but home I will always refer to as the place that I was born.
Home is where you find your peace.
That is true, but I can have multiple homes.
Okay, well, I guess. Anyway.
So I split my time between here and the U.S. better. And I still work while I'm here because I work for myself. That allows me the ability to still handle all my cases.
Whenever.
Yeah. Right. And I originally started coming here and it was a point of my peace and not thinking about doing any work outside of trying to connect with people here. But as I met more people, I realized there were a lot of Americans here starting businesses and a lot of services or products that we could use in the U.S. And they want to enter the market there, but have no idea how to. Okay. The law firms that typically help with that is what we call big law. And their hourly rates and their rates is just going to be too expensive for a small Ghanaian business that's trying to enter the market.
Right.
So that's what I do. I handle the legal needs of Ghanaians and Ghanaian business that's entering into the U.S. market and handle their U.S. legal needs. Right. And then for Americans that's here, typically their business operates in the U.S. and here. Okay. And so I handle their U.S. legal needs because they have not been able to find someone that they trust or can deal with. And so when they're trying to, say, for instance, look for more funding to expand here and to give more back to the country and to hire more Ghanaians, they may need funding for that. Right. Or to update their software. And so I can put them basically on the road to make sure their business is set up legally to get that and tell them how. Like walk them through the steps, inform them of different resources that we have no way of knowing about. So okay. So if somebody is trying to get to you, how do they get to you? Because I know it's a whole lot of people that are actually interested in what you're talking about right now. They have businesses and they don't know how to go about it. And it's very good that we have you here. So I want you to put out your information. So if anybody wants to reach out to you to do business, they can just... Okay, certainly. So if you're calling, the easiest number is going to be to call the office. Oh, right. It'll be 202-643-6... It's 202-699-1411.
Okay, that's for WhatsApp. Yes. Okay. So so they just hit you up and straight away business started, right? Yes. Okay, that's fine. All right. So I want the conversation to go on, but then the time, we can't get all the topics. So maybe when you get back sometime, we can get more into like the business part of it. All right. Thank you for coming, Sister Lucrecia Johnson.
Thank you for having me.
Really appreciate you here in the studio.
It's time for a shift. This is the shift. Big change, big things in a phase. Yeah, big change, big things in a phase. Yeah.